Yeah, I have a big. Okay. Well, again, welcome, and just wanted to thank you for being here today for Tee Up Your Business for Success and Succession. We're going to delve into factors that contribute to or distract from business success and succession today. For instance, notions like business continuity is not just for continuing present operations, but also future operations as well. And succession planning can be accomplished through many means, one of which is identifying and preparing emerging leaders and managers. With 70% of US business owners expected to leave their business in the next 10 years, owners need to start early to prepare themselves and their business for that transition. And across all of these topics collectively, bad outcomes usually result from insufficient planning combined with unexpected events. Our experienced panel today includes a certified business continuity professional, an expert in people strategies, and a merger and acquisition professional. They will share case studies and describe their methodologies. And you'll also have the opportunity to download some valuable resource documents from each panelist. There's actually a link that's in the chat now where you can go to do that at your leisure before we're done today. I'm Mark James. I'm the moderator for the discussion today. I'm a business improvement advisor and business speaker with over 40 years of experience in workplace performance, channel effectiveness, and customer loyalty. As the founder and president of Performance Advisors Group, I help B2B companies achieve sustainable growth and competitive advantage by eliminating the barriers that inevitably can get in the way. Now, our agenda today is pretty simple. Over the next 50 minutes or so, we're going to hear from our three panelists, and you'll also have opportunity to ask questions. So rather than forcing you to put them in the chat, Carl, if you're going to be one of our few participants here, just feel free to raise your hand or just shout out, hey, you got a question as we go through. So we'll stop periodically to answer questions you may have, and we'll allow time at the end if you'd rather do that. As I've said, you'll have access to those handouts through that link that's in the handout or in the chat, and there'll be an opportunity to sign up for a brainstorming session specific to your business or your interests with one or more of our panelists, and I'll be talking about that as we get a little later along here. So let's meet our three panelists. Oh, actually, what I'd like to do, Carl, before we start, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself, I know you know Erica, but if you could introduce yourself, your business, where you're located, and what's your primary interest in being here today?
Carl Davenport. My LLC is Project Management Innovations, which is on my hat, and I subcontract with ChemQuest. ChemQuest deals in the specialty chemicals market. So I do project management with ChemQuest. A lot of what I do is project validation, project due diligence. I have written a paper for ChemQuest on business continuity based on my last corporate role. So I live in North Carolina. I'm in Fletcher, close to Asheville, and I've been here for 4 years. So the majority of my work has been in the chemical processing, paint and coatings industry. I've been there, was there for 35 years, but I specialized in projects, innovation projects related to factory improvement. With my last corporate role with SDC, which was a parent of Mitsui, I was in charge of business continuity, which that plan took 8 years, and Erica knows a little bit about that. But so I will touch on business continuity in my project management work. It's always a topic of interest and how other companies have done that. And pleasure to be here.
Great. Carl, thank you. Appreciate that. Well, let's meet our three panelists. And I know you know Erica, but for the sake of people who will be watching the recording, I'll introduce all three of our panelists. Erica Andreessen is the founder of EAAS Consulting, a recovering lawyer and a U.S. Army veteran. She's a certified business continuity professional, professor of emergency management, and an international podcast guest. Erica is also the author of the Amazon bestseller, How Not to Kill Your Business, Grow Your Business in Any Environment, Navigate Volatility, and Successfully Recover When Things Go Wrong. She's a well-regarded expert in her field, quoted in publications like Forbes, and is an invited lecturer for MIT's upcoming professional program on advanced business resiliency this summer. As the founder of Driving Improved Results, Jerry Quinn leads an experienced team that provides professional training and development for employees at all levels in Lean Six Sigma, project management skills, leadership and presentation skills. She works with leaders and teams on interdepartmental communication and collaboration, and is an executive coach to leaders who want to become an elite leader of a highly results-oriented and success-driven culture. Mike Bernhardt, our third panelist, is a strategic M&A advisor with Blue Line Ventures, a full-service merger and acquisition advisory firm focused on serving the lower middle market. They provide buy-side and sell-side advisory services crafted with each client's unique situation. This includes sale preparation, succession planning, generational transitions for family-owned businesses, merger advisory, and sale facilitation on both the buy and the sell side. And as business owners and investors themselves, they approach every engagement with an owner's mentality, conducting an intentional process aligned with the client's comprehensive set of objectives. So needless to say, we have a very experienced set of panelists here today. They know their stuff, and I'm very confident that everyone comes away with something that'll be of value. So as a way to set the stage for how our three panelists are going to help a business, I'm going to pose the same question to each of them to get started here. And then I'll follow up with each of them with a specific follow-up question that's unique to their expertise area. So here's the question for all three of you. Suppose you are asked by the leader of a manufacturing, construction, or automotive company, how do I think ahead and be prepared to protect the value of my business against a variety of risks, or for my eventual exit from the business? So Eric, I'll start with you with that question.
For me, thank you, Mark, first. But for me, I think the easiest answer and the most obvious answer is make sure you still have a business. So if you ever want to step away from your business because you want to retire or you want to sell your business, you need to make sure you still actually have that business being operational and worth something at that point. And a great way to do that is through business continuity, because I can be forward thinking and saying, all right, I know I want to retire once I hit this amount of money, or I know I want to retire at this age. I want to plan my next 5 company retreats. And this requires a level of hubris where you're like, well, of course the business is going to be around, but it's not necessarily going to be true. So while a lot of people, when they hear that I do business continuity and they don't really know or understand what business continuity is, their first assumption is that I do succession planning. And I'm like, that is a plank of business continuity, but it's everything else. It is people, it is processes, it is the premise, and it is providers. So your third-party providers. You need to make sure that your business is actually thriving and sustaining and operational through any type of disaster and disruption, not just you leaving, because also you can plan on when you want to leave, but you also may get hit by a bus. So it's not always going to be on your terms.
Great, thank you. Well, here's a follow-up question for you. You kind of spoken to it a little bit, but explain what is meant by the umbrella of business continuity.
Sure. A lot of professionals in the various spaces like cybersecurity or emergency management or crisis management or even communications for crisis communications, they're like, oh, these are all distinct fields. They are distinct in that they are super nuanced parts of a broader implication of business continuity, because all these things are planks in the business continuity realm along with succession planning. So there is a lot of where you're making sure that everything is protected. Like, oh, I'm good with cybersecurity. I've done business continuity planning. No, you've just taken care of the technological aspect of your business being able to continue and operational, not necessarily everything else, because sometimes it's more than just Jeff with the big feet kicking the plug out of the wall. It could be something that impacts your business in another way. So there's this umbrella. They're not different and distinct. They all fall under, but they're also really, really important because every bit of those planks. And that's actually why one of the resource I gave is a crisis communication template. So people know how to communicate certain things, and that is a very important part of how you're comporting yourself internally and externally, and how your shareholders and stakeholders and clients see that. That's another part of this country, because your reputation is also one of your most valuable assets, that just doing something wrong can ruin it for you and just ruin your business completely.
Yeah. And I would imagine from a case study or story standpoint, you more often than not run into businesses where they are only addressing 1 or 2 of the planks rather than all of them.
Correct. So a recent top of mind in the media example of really bad succession planning and not doing business continuity, right, is with the Disney organization. So they've had issues with their succession planning since Michael Eisner took over back in '84. But it's been really bad with Bob Iger taking over, because he pretty much eliminated anybody who could potentially succeed him. He was really very, very myopic about who he wanted to handpick to take over him. And the person that he handpicked wound up being pushed out 3 years later, so Bob Iger can come back. And the company has not increased their stock value in over 10 years. So they're now trying to force everybody out. The shareholders are upset. And there's really bad communication coming through on that. So again, it's not just the succession planning, it's the crisis communication, the messaging that Disney is not putting out accurately. They were featured in Business Insider. They were featured in the Harvard Law Review recently in the last 2-3 months, just about how awful their succession planning is.
That's a good example. And we all know that Disney has been struggling mightily for a lot of reasons. That's certainly one of them. Thank you, Erica. Jerry, I'll move to you next. The question again is, how do I think ahead and be prepared to protect value against a variety of risks or for my eventual exit from the business? How would you answer that question?
Well, the biggest expense that everybody has in their business is their people expense. And the biggest resource that they have in their business is their people resource. And so if the business is going to continue, there have to be people. And as we just spoke about with Disney, it sounds like they're trying to eliminate people, not build people into their organization to allow for a more successful future. And so when I work with an organization, I'm helping them plan ahead. Well, what is the normal attrition going to be? Is it going to be that you have X number of people retiring in this time frame, approximately? Let's look 3-5 years ahead. What's our history of how well we retain people? We can expect a certain amount of turnover over the course of that time. What other kinds of things might happen? Like, might we acquire a company? Might we merge with a company? Might some things change in the industry where we have to do some pivoting? Do we want to open a new division? And so when we're looking in this longer time frame, we're saying, how are our people strategies going to change because of our business strategy? And also we might get into, how is our business strategy going to change because of our people? Maybe our people are getting very innovative and they're going to discover the new Post-it note, which is going to, create a whole new division or a new focus in our for our business. And so you've got to be looking at all those things, and you don't look at them, of course, in a vacuum. You look at them in terms of competitive advantage and market share and where the industry is going and how innovation is shaping up. But you look at all that and you say, well, how's that going to impact the people that we need? And do we have to fill out a bigger R&D team because we want to be on the cutting edge of some new technologies that need to be developed? But you look at the big picture and then you say, whether it's a small company or a big company having multiple divisions, we can expect that this position is going to open up. Who are we going to move into that position? Well, we have some people who might be ready in a few years, but maybe now. What training do they need? What coaching do they need in order to actually be able to fulfill that? And how are we preparing our leaders to prepare new leaders? In other words, do we have a management training strategy in place where managers look to train somebody to replace them? Are we coaching and training our managers to just be dictatorial and keep everybody else at bay? Just do it the way I tell you and don't think about it. Or are we training our managers to be performance coaches so that those managers can say, how would you make the decision? What's the critical thinking around here? What options do you have? What if you pursued this option? Where would it lead? What if you pursued this option? Where would it lead? And have the person who's in the direct report position say, well, if I did this, it would yield here. If I did this, it would yield here. I think I would rather go this way. And so they start to develop their own ability to think critically, to weigh options, to think in terms of not only their own position, but what's in best interest of the whole company. And that's how you develop people to be the replacements. Every manager should be training their replacements so that they themselves can move up. And if they're not, they're doing themselves a disservice as well as the company. And so I work with companies to think ahead strategically, like a chess game, right? That's why we chose the chess as the image for this, because we're all thinking strategically about the future.
Thank you,
What?
Jerry.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Here's a follow-up question for you, and I'm going to back upstream from having people in the organization to what you do to attract people. What things should be in place that an owner should think about when planning? Oh, excuse me, wrong question. What things should a business have in place that will attract top talent?
The top thing that attracts top talent is a good culture. People want to know that they're not going to work in a toxic environment. They want to know that they're working with other A players. So if they know that all the other people from who are the top of the industry happen to work at X firm, they're saying, I want to work with the A players because together we're going to generate wonderful things. So I'm going to go work with X firm as well. And what attracts all those players in the long run is the ability to be empowered, to create and to innovate, to be empowered to develop, to be empowered to be developed themselves, as well as to develop new things. To feel good about working there and to feel that people care and have empathy. And that's got to be in the culture. That's got to come from the top down. It's got to be part of senior leadership, and leadership has to make sure it's part of the management, mid-management level. And that's how it's going to filter down. People want to know that they want to get up in the morning and love coming to work because it's a place where they're going to be their best selves.
Yeah. No, that's well put. And the biggest significant influencer of culture is the nature and style of leadership and local managers. There's tons of evidence from Gallup and every place else. So that what you were talking about in answer to the first question directly impacts culture as well.
Yeah.
And one of the things I find really unnerving, and this is a disruptive statement on purpose, but every day in America, 7 out of 10 people get up, quit their job, and then go to work. That's the percentage of people in the workforce who are disengaged at work. And quite often
those
they're
quiet
disengaged.
quitters.
Yeah, they're disengaged before they ever get to work, or worse, they're the actively disengaged, the ones that poison the well. So there's a great opportunity to improve culture and to improve employee engagement if 7 out of 10 are not currently engaged. So all those things are very important. So thank you, Jerry, for that. Mike, I'll turn to you. The question again is how to think ahead and be prepared to protect against risks and for eventual exit from a business.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. I think the two key words there are think ahead. And in that vein, I think the best advice I can give is start now. The research shows that 4 out of 5 business owners do not have a documented transition or exit plan. And coincidentally, about 80% of businesses do not have a successful transition when their owner wants to leave or needs to leave. And so while those things aren't probably directly linked, it's a pretty strong correlation there that having a plan is going to put you in a better place and have your business in a better spot when that moment comes, when you either choose to walk away, retire, sell the business, whatever, or you end up in a situation where you have to step back, health problems, other issues that pop up. And so, there's no time that's too early to start doing that. The plans will change. You may not have a perfect plan, but having something will be better than nothing. And really that can look as simple as, who could lead the business if I left for 2 weeks? Take a 2-week vacation, or 4 weeks, or 8 weeks. Who would step up in that case and take over the day-to-day? They may not have the same vision that the owner or CEO has. They may not have the same strategic thinking, but who could step in and manage the day-to-day for that period of time? And really, what would they need to be successful in doing that? And that right there is the start of a plan. What do you need to put in place? What do you need to get out of your head as the business owner and onto a piece of paper so that somebody else could take those first steps to managing the business day to day, at least on an interim basis, right? A full plan is much more complicated and detailed than that, but that's at least the start. And doesn't take much to just get started and get doing that now.
Great, thank you. Well, the follow-up question is sort of ask you to dig a little deeper into what you just said. What should be the first things an owner should think about when planning their exit from a business? I know you spoke to a couple of those. Are there some other things you'd like to add?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's really, it comes down to two things. It's really who and how, right? So I phrased it a minute ago of who could lead if you had to sort of unexpectedly step away for a couple of weeks. Maybe the bigger picture thinking is, right, who's the right person to lead this business when I leave? And is that person in-house right now? Or do we need someone like Jerry, who just talked about how to attract top talent and people like that, and bring in someone who could step into that role over time? And then the how is really, what are the established processes in the business that make it run day to day? And are those well documented? Are there systems in place that make those easy to transfer? Or are they all kind of ad hoc and homegrown and therefore difficult to transition over? So getting started there with documenting those processes, there's easy ways to do that, especially for some back office stuff with services like Loom, where you can record a video just while you do your work and narrate it. That way you're not sort of duplicating effort to document stuff. Documenting out in the real world, like in a shop, a factory or something, is a little harder, but can be done. But how do you get those things documented so that leadership can come in your absence and run the business and do it well and be successful?
Great. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. Well, we've heard from the three panelists. Carl, I'm going to open up the floor for any questions or comments that you have. But as I do, just as a reminder to you and anyone who may be watching the recording, the link is out there to go get the for free resources. And then also I put my contact information in there. So anyone who wants a complimentary brainstorm your challenge session with one or more of our panelists, contact me either by phone or email, and I'll work with you to get your sense of your availability and coordinate with the panelists and give them a sense of what you want to talk about. So those things are out there in chat. So Carl, anything you want to add or questions you have for the group?
Well, there's two levels. Most companies have like a human resources software. So performance data, roles that the persons have within the organization, and then that might be pulled into different managers or even HR itself. So you have that as a resource to identify maybe upcoming personnel. They might be in the lab, they might be in the factory, they might be in shipping or where they are. And so you can identify people that you would want into your succession plan. On the executive level, I kind of agree with what Mike said, that if you don't have candidates within your own organization, you may have to look externally. And that chimes in with what Jerry said. Someone that's going to join from the outside is going to want to be attracted to the culture. So, and then, to what Erica said, it's bigger than just you. And those other persons. There's other things that you're going to have to think about as it regards your company. So that's my input.
Okay, great.
Yeah, let me say something about what you just said, Carl. Whether it's shipping or whether it's accounting or whether it's a manufacturing organization, somebody from the floor, very often companies say, oh, well, this person is a star performer. They do their job really well. Let's make them the manager of the department. No, because they're good at some technical things doesn't mean they have the people skills to be a manager. And this happens all the time. And I don't know where, senior leadership thinks that they can just roll somebody into management without giving them any training. The whole idea of being a manager is a completely different job with different kind of soft skills than just doing that job. And what happens if you take a super worker and you make them a manager, and they fail at the manager part, and then the super worker, they can't go backwards very often. So then you're creating more of a problem than it's worth. when I work with a company, I usually am partnering with them so that they can talk about these opportunities, and we can do some assessments to see who has the soft skills in order to be more be pinpointed as a candidate, as an emerging leader or an emerging manager. And then, of course, give them the training to really fully develop those skills. I have a coaching and training program I call Manager as Performance Coach, which takes people out of the realm of being the dictatorial manager, do this and do this and do this, and just and encourage them to be performance coach, which allows them to have different kinds of conversations and develop the soft skills of the people below who they want to become trained to become a manager.
So I'm going to add on that. I agree you need an internal and potential external candidates. We also need an emergency candidate. Because again, if the bus comes and takes you out of the business as opposed to your plan, you're going to need somebody. And of course, that emergency person, it's not going to be the person who's anointed to be the whole entire time. So they need to be trained to do a short-term interim thing while you're looking for the right person and training up the right person. But that's also part of a continuity plan. It is making sure that for any kind of thing, even when it's the thing you're not planning for, that's really important. And to Mike's point, in the military, we did we called them continuity books for each individual position, because military is always moving people around. And sometimes you don't have a left seat, right seat, because you get moved before the person comes in. So you have to leave them a book of stuff. So they literally could pick up the book on day one, show up to where they're supposed to show up, know what they have to do, and have at least a 50% chance of success in doing that job from the start, which benefits the whole entire organization. And why most civilian organizations don't do this is always perplexed me. But, I don't know why.
I've seen that in previous jobs too, Erica. We had a entry-level role where we were expected to do that, and then you go up one level and it doesn't exist, and you change into a role and there's no guidance, which is just crazy and makes things difficult. And Jerry, I think you hit on a really great point on the super worker who gets promoted. I think that's the term you used. Not only is that person probably not equipped to be a manager, but they've also lost their most productive person in the department. Right. So now, not only are they being pulled up to a job where maybe they're not trained to be successful, but they've also lost the best person that was doing the job before. And so there's kind of two holes that you've created by doing that. So, there's lots of ways, and I think we've all talked about some of them to try to get ahead of that and prevent some of that. But that's the danger you have, especially if you're not planning ahead, right? If that bus comes, like Erica said, and your visionary, your CEO, your business owner gets taken out for some period of time or permanently, right? People have to all step up, and it leaves lots of holes, and that's where businesses can fall down. Having the right plan in place, having people start to train for their future roles, even though they're not quite there yet, all ways that you can start to get ahead of that and be prepared for that eventual situation before it comes.
Yeah. Not planning also is a single point of failure for that leader. So if that leader is the only one with all the codes and the passwords and the account information, they're gone. If you've not planned for, in the eventuality that they're not going to be there suddenly, then the business is screeching halt, because they can't operate with all that institutional knowledge in that one person's head, and they're now incapacitated.
Yep.
Yeah. 90% of people who come into a managerial role for the first time have no formal experience in it or any formal training in it. And so much of what you're talking, all three of you were talking about, and what you mentioned, Carl, what I've observed just in this conversation, but just across business in general, there are a lot of paradigms left over from the early days of the Industrial Revolution and the early days of management style in the business world that die really hard, and a lot of them need to die. So we're up against paradigms are very hard to shift, and but that still is opportunity.
You're at the risk of dating myself. You're talking about the Peter principle, where you promote the person to the point where then they're not effective. The HR software, it's just a tool. It does come down to the management team to decide does that person have the qualities? Are we going to train them to become a manager?
Yep.
The other question too is, do they want to follow that career track? Because this is the conversation that should
Absolutely.
be had with each employee.
Yep.
What do you foresee yourself in 5 years? Do you foresee yourself staying here? Do you foresee yourself, some people say, well, this is interim for me. I really want to start my own business. Well, shouldn't we know about that now? Or I love this company, I want to stay here. But you know what? I really would love to get into sales. I've been in operations and yeah, I've done a good job, but it's boring. I want to get out in sales. And how do we train them for that? And then of course there are personality, motivation, communication, and soft skill assessments that people can do to say, what part of the organization would you be best in given your personality and the way you communicate? Maybe you're an extrovert and you really detract from operations because you're talking all the time and you're not getting a whole lot done. But you would be really great in sales because you're the kind of chatty person who can establish rapport pretty easily. So giving people a chance to voice what part of the organization they want to grow into, how they want to evolve with the organization. And you keep all that knowledge about the organization intact. The best salespeople are the people who know operations inside out, right? Because they
Yeah.
know what can be done, what can't be done, and how to get things done, who to go for get the right questions and answered and the right things done. And so you want to keep that institutional knowledge in the organization. So having the people evolve with the organization just serves the organization so much better.
Yeah, Jerry,
Yes.
put a
Excellent.
spin on that. We see that a lot with family-owned businesses where
Mhm.
the parent started the business and one of the children or one or more of the children is poised to take it over. And the answer is, oh, that's our succession plan. Junior is going to take over the business and everything's going to be great. And there's a couple of problems with that. One, the child doesn't have all the experience of growing the business and building it from scratch that the parent had. So there's a big experience gap there. And they've maybe worked in the business for a period of time, but they haven't touched all of those disciplines within the business, right? Maybe they've never done sales, and sales is probably one of the bigger jobs of the owner or the president, CEO, whatever role you want to give them. And so not that they're not capable, not that they won't be capable when the time comes, but what gaps do they have on their resume? What should they go dabble in now? Maybe they should spend some time in sales, or maybe spend more time in operations and learn and have those learning curve moments when it's not quite as consequential, right? When mom or dad is still there steering the ship. So that's another spin on kind of what you just described there.
Well, what Carl would know as project manager is that you can project manage your way into this or out of this, however you want to call it. I've often worked with parents and adult kids who are going to transition the business, and we do it in terms of leadership because a lot of times the parents don't think the kids know anything, and the kids think, of course, the parents, they're stuck on the old world. And meanwhile, the parents are worried that the kids are going to ruin the business and everything they spent their life building is going to be demolished. And the kids are saying, you're really holding back the business because you're not getting into the design world and electronics and taking on another location and blah, 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 blah. So a lot of times when I work with a company like that, I set up a project management. First we're going to talk about leadership. What is leadership and how do we do it? And within that context, what's the marketing department do? And who are the best people to run it? And who's there now? And how could it be developed? And when are you going to take this over? And when are you going to let go? Because parents have a hard time letting go. And then what about sales? And when are you going to let go of sales? And, department by department, we train and then let go, train and let go, train and let go. So that and part of that process too is to have the kids go work outside the business. What does it look like to work for somebody else when you're not the owner's son or daughter who all the other employees know are going to get favoritism, right? And so what is it? mean to work outside the business for a couple of years so that you could prepare for how you want to run the business when you do become the owner.
Yeah, these things all talk to one question that employees are always asking of themselves and of their employer. Where am I going? What's my future here? And it's incumbent upon leadership at the top all the way down to the local manager to always be mindful of the fact that you need to help answer that question in their minds. Because human nature being what it is, if I'm not getting the right answer from my employer, I'm going to fill in the blanks with my own interpretation or through my own set of lenses as to what my future is here. And I may make a decision or have an answer that's not in line with what the situation's really about or what the opportunities are. So it's incumbent upon leaders and managers to have that constant conversation about understanding, where people want to go, and also be transparent about their opportunities and help them to understand, here are the skills and other things you need to do, perhaps working outside the organization, going and working in sales for a while. Those are conversations that need to be had on a regular basis. So anything else we want to add here? Open the floor up to anyone.
I would just add, based on the discussion that you all just had, that having a mindset of business continuity, all of those conversations, the cultivation of employees, and having the thoughts in the employee, they're free to speak their mind. Hey, I would like to do this, or where am I going? That's all, the best leadership is going to create that culture that and having that mindset for business continuity is going to make all of those conversations easier to have.
Yeah, well said. Very good point. Very good point. Just a parting question for you, Erica. I've always been a big proponent of repair before failure in terms of a mindset. To me, tell me if I'm wrong, but that should be part and parcel of a mindset around continuity, correct?
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's always cheaper and easier to do in advance. Honestly, a lot of these things just cost time and effort, no money, by and large, just to think about things and plan for them and write them out, right? So writing out SOPs, writing out plans, thinking about and looking at, okay, what are we doing here? Those are all things that you can do without spending any money. And then, buying the control measures, like, so let's say you need a backup generator, that's going to cost you money. But the identifying that you need it, it's not cost you any money. And it's it's part of, and what I always love to talk about is business continuity isn't a one and done, check the box, move on, I'm good. It's a living process. Your plan is a living document because you are changing. The environment is always changing. So the challenges and things you're going to face, particularly as you're growing, is going to be different. So you're up leveling, you're going to have different types of clients with different types of needs. If you're expanding, again, that you're in different operational environments, each one of these things need to be looked at separately. And then especially with your succession planning, with everything that both Jerry and Mike have talked about, if you're developing somebody, are they ready yet? So you're like, hey, I planned on handing over the business in 5 years. But if that internal candidate, and you haven't found anybody external to actually meet that yet, it's like, okay, I need a little, like 2 more years of incubation time for that leadership to get right where we're going and to make sure that, we're not sticking where we've been.
Good. Yeah, excellent point. Thank you. Great. Well, we've been at this now for a little over about 40 minutes or so. If anyone has anything else, we can continue on, but short of that, again, just a reminder, the free resource document, the link to it is in the chat, as well as my contact information. If anyone wants to schedule a complimentary brainstorm your challenge session with one or more of our panelists, contact me. We'll set that up. And really appreciate all the input today. This is valuable stuff. I always learn something every time I sit down with great people that are knowledgeable. And I'm a big believer that if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. I'm in the right room here. So thank you all very much. And Carl, appreciate your being here today. Hopefully you got
my
something out
pleasure.
of this.
Yeah, it's great to be here. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Well, everyone have a great day.
You too, Mark.
Thank you
Thanks.
all. Take care.
Go Wagner.
Yes.
Thanks. Thanks.
Thank you so
Take
much.
care. Bye-bye.